Hellsinger VR is a game that I've had my eye on for some time. It's got fantastic reviews, and personally I do like rhythm games, especially in VR, but crossing a rhythm game with a Doom art style sounds pretty much perfect to me. So in today's video I'm going to share my thoughts of Hellsinger in terms of gameplay and what to expect from both the PSVR2 and MetaQuest versions. For clarity, this video is sponsored by the developers to be featured on the channel, but my words and thoughts as always are my own. Firstly, Hellsinger only currently has 7 levels, and I say currently because there seems to be a lot of DLC which is currently unavailable due to the game not being fully released. There's gloves which have different perks, music and 2 extra weapons. In my experience today, the levels took around 15 to 20 minutes, but that's on GOAT difficulty, which is another way of saying normal or medium. I have played it on harder difficulties and it's definitely more of a challenge, so for scoreboard chasers and perfectionists, you'll definitely enjoy this. So for those of you interested in what the game is about and the story, you're a lost soul named the Unknown who arrives in Hell, and your memories, voice and your song is stolen. Apparently this is the sort of thing that unfortunately happens to you if you do go to Hell. You meet a talking skull who is the game's narrator, voiced by Troy Baker from The Last of Us, and the skull has a pulse power, aka the rhythm of the universe. And together you must go through Hell, killing to the beat and beat the boss and get your voice back. The game is linear in design and everything on the world pulsates to the beat that you need to kill to. Your aiming reticule will also pulse and show you when your super is built up, which is unique to each weapon. Now the hard and best part of the game is actually killing to the beat and keeping up your combo. Doing this increases damage and points, but for me it was all about just keeping up the damage. Spread around the levels are multiplier bonuses, and you can also reload to the beat to do more damage. Think of like Gears of War active reloading. When all of these mechanics line up, you get into that zone, and that's when the game is really great. And it definitely has that one more go, but unfortunately there's some parts of the game that slows this down, like your character does get stuck on stairs or some enemies get stuck in the environment. It is rare, but it does happen and it does break your flow. There is a lot of music in the game, but I've only played the original soundtrack, which is actually great anyway, but there's also licensed music, as I'm sure you're aware if you've watched any of the trailers, but I couldn't feature them in this video because of potential copyright. But I will leave a link to both games and their respective stores in this video description, and I'm sure in there you'll find out what music is featured. The best weapons out of the 5 or 6 available to me were the shotgun and the crossbow, and all weapons, if they're large enough, can be two-handed. There is some pistols which are cool at first, but I couldn't get the reloading down, and it kept ruining my multiplier, which made the game pretty tough, especially when there's just so much going on. And I think it's because this was originally a flat game and there's just so many enemies spawning from all different directions, and it can get a bit much. For people who play standing, this is fine, but if you play seated, especially if you're thinking of playing seated on PSVR2, I reckon you'll be wound up in your cable pretty quickly, especially on the harder difficulty on the later levels. On PSVR2 the game is released in 2 days, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a launch day update, but I was a little disappointed with the visuals, especially after playing the original PCVR demo. On PSVR2 you get some minor graphical glitches, you'll also see the draw distance come into effect, and there's a tiny bit of world wobble. And probably the bit that really gutted me was the guns. They literally don't look all that great, which is really surprising because this is definitely the PC version of the game in every other way. But with all that being said, don't get me wrong, when you're actually playing the game and in the thick of a fight, none of that really matters, but I wanted to mention it to you all the same. A very cool feature is the use of headset haptics and the haptics of the controllers. Adaptive triggers are put to good use, but the beat you need to kill to pulsates through the controllers and the headset, and this is really awesome. Over in Questland, I was pretty shocked actually how good this looked. The weapons look great and on par with PC, which is really surprising, and even though the world itself definitely had lower textures, the game looks pin sharp on Quest 3 and a bit more colourful. And I also didn't see any of the draw distance issues I mentioned on PSVR. The frame rate of things like fire, for example, are definitely halved, I would say, to like 30 frames instead of 60, and the enemies weren't quite as smooth in their movement. But overall, for a standalone version, I was really impressed. To summarise, I think Hellsinger provides a first-person experience that you would expect from seeing the flat game and from the trailers. It's a hardcore, challenging and rewarding shooter with obviously a great soundtrack, and it doesn't shy away from being different and difficult. If you want a challenge, which is the biggest reason I chose to accept this sponsorship and have been playing most of the day on both systems, I think this is the game for you. But please be aware, as I said, currently there is only 7 levels, and overall your first playthrough might only take 2 hours. Thank you ever so much for watching my hands-on experience with Hellsinger VR. Please subscribe and like for more VR content, and I'll see you on the next one.